All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to get right to it here. Sorry for the delayed start, but here we go. All right, so today, it would help if I shared my screen, wouldn't it? All right, today, folks, we're going to start out with a little term review. We'll start out with Quizlet Live, just so that we can review for that term quiz at the end of the hour here, okay? There's a quick video on kind of a local topic. 1862, during the American Civil War, there was what some people call the Sioux Uprising, what others call the Dakota War. Ties very closely in with what we are talking about with Civil War. We are going to take a more focused look at Sherman's March, and I've got a short video. Both these videos are about 5 minutes. This should go pretty quick today. And then I'm going to make sure that you guys can access the Civil War Lecture Part 2 for Play Posit, and we'll finish up with the term quiz today. So let's sneak over to Schoology real quick, just so that you guys take a look at the due dates and you see what's going on there. Let's view this course as somebody from the first hour. Will be Joel today. All right. So you can see over on the right-hand side here, folks, okay, you've got that Civil War Lecture Part 1, Play Posit. Make sure that you get in there and get that going. Like I said, that's about a 20-minute lecture, but there's only about 3 questions that you have to answer during it. Your initial Flipgrid response needs to be in by today. I know some of you were like, well, I haven't gotten my feedback yet. Well, I think that there's about 4 or 5 people that may have submitted one yesterday that I haven't gotten any feedback on. That's fine. Okay, I just want your initial Flipgrid response in by today so that I can still give you feedback so that you can resubmit for full credit if that's something you want to do. This Civil War Lecture Part 2, Play Posit, isn't due until that Thursday that we come back from break. I didn't want to give you, so I don't feel like I'm truly giving you homework over break, considering you should have time once we get back to still get that in. But I know that some of you, want to get going on that. So both those Play Posits should be available now. So those are due dates that you've got going on today on top of the term quiz that we are taking today. So without further ado, let's get into reviewing the Civil War terms so that we can get on to, so that we can get going on the rest of this stuff. So let's all go to Quizlet.live right now. So I'll go to Quizlet.live. And there's your code. Okay, about 30 more seconds, then we'll get going here, folks. All right, here we go. And they're racing. Whoa, that was quick. Looks like you guys are ready for this one today. Here we go. Round two, and they're racing. Whoa. I don't know if McKenna's going to let anybody else play today. Here we go. And they're racing. Wowee. All right. That was 3 rounds, wasn't it? Yeah, that was 3 rounds. Okay. So here's what I want to talk about first here, folks, before we even get into the other 2 things. And this, like I said, this is going to go pretty quick today. Here's what typical feedback has been on Flipgrid. And I think that it's important for everybody to hear because obviously I was not very clear on some of this stuff because if it, because it keeps popping up. Okay. One is I want a clearly stated question. Okay. And you're getting 10 points just for your question. So what I'm hearing some people do is they go, well, my question was on the Battle of Lexington. And they don't actually state the question. They just stated a subject or they just stated a topic. Like, I want a specific question about what you're trying to learn about. Okay. And the second big thing is that, you'll state your question and you'll talk about why you want to learn about it. And then lastly, some kids are just going, well, and this is what I think. Well, wait a minute. You need to be showing me what the body of research is that you went out and found was. Does that make sense? You're going out there and you're going, I saw a source that said this. I saw a source that said this. It seems like it seems pretty collectively that people are agreeing upon this being the answer or something like that. As opposed to, well, here's what I think. Like, what if, I'm just trying to pull one out of thin air here, but like, what if the American Revolution never happened? Well, here's what I think. That I'm hearing about at least 5, 6 kids a class say that. And it's like, well, wait a minute. This isn't about what you think or what you daydream about what would have happened. I want you actually out there actively researching and seeing what other people are saying, what would be the conclusion to the question that you're asking. So hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, please stick around and we can talk about that after you take your quiz. So without further ado, let's get into our first topic. So during a couple of things just to consider here, you know, there's some people that will consider, you know, how do I want to phrase this? Gettysburg to be like the northernmost battle of the American Civil War. And whether or not you consider the Dakota Uprising or the Dakota War or the Sioux Uprising to be a part of that Civil War, there definitely was a war going on Minnesotan soil. Okay. Secondly, the largest public execution in the United States occurred in Minnesota. So both of these are true. And we're going to take a look at that right now. I apologize, this video isn't the best, but the information on it is really, really good. So I'm going to mute myself and we're going to watch this thing. Like I said, it's real quick. Here we go. Whoops. Okay. You see a lot of connections there, and hopefully you were able to, what do I want to say? See a lot of connections there with, you know, you probably had never heard the name Henry Sibley before. Lincoln had to intervene directly, so you could consider this in some capacities, a part of the American Civil War. I'm sure that maybe some of you had talked about that public execution, or maybe you'd been to Mankato and seen where that occurred, or you had a good, or maybe you just up on Minnesota history. I don't know, but I want to get into the second part here. Of something we're going to delve into a little bit further here with Sherman's March. Now, General Sherman, this is a pretty controversial part of the American Civil War, okay, because total war, okay, was where Sherman brought the war to the people of, Georgia in particular. In order to win this war, General Sherman thought that he had to win the hearts and minds of the people in the South. So he thought it was a great way to break the South in half, both literally and figuratively, by marching right through Georgia, splitting it in half, and he destroyed everything that he encountered along the way. Okay, so you will, when you guys go to college and you take like an ethics course, this could very well be one of those topics. It could very well be one of those things like, how should war be carried out? Those of you that get really into history in college, you might have this discussion about how war should be carried out. Should it be carried out against civilians? Is this it's addressed in the Geneva Conventions, but in this time period, in the age of shortly after the Napoleonic Wars, officers were supposed to be there to restrain people from acting out against civilians. Okay, so that's something that I kind of want you to consider here as you watch this next bit on General Sherman. Okay.
After Lincoln's re-election, Sherman set off on the campaign which would be called his March to the Sea. He would implement a tactic that he had started before but never put into full use: total war. His army would march from Atlanta to Savannah, where no army stood in their path. They would take little supplies with them, but collect their own and burn and destroy the rest. He planned to burn and destroy his way through the South, bringing the war home to the civilians and breaking their will to fight. Sherman's army set off on November 15th, leaving Atlanta in flames behind them. Sherman ordered that nothing the Confederates could use be left standing, but the rear guard decided to burn down the entire town. It was a fitting beginning to the campaign. The army marched in two columns on different roads, altogether about 62,000 strong. The only thing standing in the way of Sherman and Savannah were 13,000 men, many of whom, in other circumstances, would have been considered unfit for service because of age. They attempted to make a stand at Griswoldville, charging across an open field, but they were easily defeated by Sherman's veterans. 1,100 Confederate men were lost, many of them boys and old men. Sherman's men met little resistance, and they were able to leisurely complete their work of destruction. Each day they destroyed a section of Georgia 10 miles long and 30 to 50 miles wide. They systematically tore up the railroad, and then heating the ties until they were bendable, they bent them in a hook around a tree, leaving Sherman's neckties, as they were called, scattered around the state. Sherman's orders were for foraging parties to be sent out to collect supplies for the army without entering into homes. Violations of these rules were often overlooked.
The skill and success of the men in collecting forage was one of the features of this march. Each brigade commander had authority to detail a company of foragers, usually about 50 men, with 1 or 2 commissioned officers selected for their boldness and enterprise. This party would proceed on foot 5 or 6 miles from the route traveled by the brigade, and then visit every plantation and farm within range. They would usually procure a wagon or family carriage, load it with bacon, cornmeal, turkeys, chickens, ducks, and everything that could be used as food or forage, and would then regain the main road. Often would I pass these foraging parties at the roadside, waiting for their wagons to come up, and was amused at their strange collections, mules, horses, even cattle, packed with old saddles and loaded with hams, bacon, bags of cornmeal, and poultry of every character and description. Although this foraging was attended with great danger and hard work, there seemed to be a charm about it that attracted the soldiers, and it was a privilege to be detailed on such a party. Daily they returned mounted on all sorts of beasts, which were at once taken from them and appropriated to the general use. But the next day they would start out again on foot, only to repeat the experience of the day before. No doubt, many acts of pillage, robbery, and violence were committed by these parties of foragers, usually called.
Sherman arrived outside Savannah on December 9th, having marched through the heart of the state of Georgia. He found Hardee entrenched there with 10,000 men. Sherman made contact with the Navy, ensuring that he would have supplies and artillery necessary for a siege. However, Hardee, instead of waiting for the siege, escaped on December 20th. The march to the sea was over. 300 miles of railroads had been destroyed. $100 million in damage had been done. $1.4 billion in modern dollars. Thousands of horses and cattle, 9.5 million pounds of corn, and 10.5 million pounds of fodder had all been taken from the citizens of Georgia.
We are not only fighting armies, but a hostile people, and must make old and young, rich and poor, feel the hard hand of war, as well as their organized armies. I know that this recent movement of mine through Georgia has had a wonderful effect in this respect. Thousands who had been deceived by their lying papers into the belief that we were being whipped all the time realize the truth and have no appetite for a repetition of the same experience.
Sherman's actions remained very controversial. For many years after the war, the name of Sherman was hated in the areas through which he marched. Even many of the slaves hated him, for they were hurt as much as anyone else on the plantations, and many of those who tried to follow the Union Army died along the way. The war affected every civilian in America, through the loss of friends and family, and to the economic problems which affected everyone. But Sherman's actions brought the military sufferings of war to the women and children of Georgia, inflicting scars that would remain for generations. Sherman's actions were immoral according to the Bible. The Old Testament law says that armies must not destroy the fruit trees of the land. God intended that the land not be destroyed so that it would remain productive. During the Civil War, every army, North and South, violated private property. Most commanders issued orders against it, but they enforced those orders to varying degrees. Sherman was different. He was intentional in his destruction. Although his soldiers took his orders beyond where he had written them, they can hardly bear the blame, since it was his strategic design for the campaign.
Okay, so that's Sherman. If you were to mention William Tecumseh Sherman's name, even today, throughout parts of Georgia, you would encounter people that still hate him to this day, because largely what the guy was doing was, pillaging, or foraging, as he was calling it. But a lot of people would look at that and go, well, that was war profiteering. You were taking from the people that you weren't necessarily declaring war on. Okay. Whereas the other side of the spectrum would look at it and go, war, and this was, his quote as well, which is, war is hell. And that's not, this isn't any, that's the way that war is. Let's not try to sugarcoat it in any way. How else would one deal with a rebellion? The notion that drastic times call for these drastic measures to end the war. So anyway, that's probably not the last time you'll hear about Sherman, either in this class or in other history classes. But that just kind of enhances what else you are doing with that part 2 lecture, which I hope that you guys can get to today or after break. Okay, so let me go back to my checklist and make sure that we covered everything that we needed to hear today. All right, we reviewed the terms. We talked about the Sioux Uprising. We talked about Sherman's March. Can everybody access that second play posit? Let's take a look real quick and just see if you can access that play posit. Okay, so when you go under activities for Civil War, there's the second one right there. Okay, play posit Civil War Part 2, click on that, and it should be linked properly. I thought I'd check to make sure that that worked. But I will be sticking around. Okay, I will be sticking around if anybody has any questions or if there is some confusion about anything at all. But you do have one more assignment for break, and that is to take some time off. Enjoy the time away here, folks. You guys have done a fantastic job so far with this course. It hasn't been easy for any of us, I know, but I want you guys to actively take a break here, okay, and get some rest, and so you can come back recharge next year. So yeah, okay. I'm about to open up that quiz right now. And then once you have taken the quiz, you can be done for the day. Okay. Quiz is available. Have at it. Once you've taken it, I'll see you guys later.